Hello everyone, how are you doing? This is part 2 of the hoverboard series, and in this part we will start making the hoverboard float. But before, if you do like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe so you don't lose any new content. And now we have members on the channel. If you want early access to new videos, feel free to join and I appreciate your support. So without further ado, let's start. Okay, so let's open the hoverboard blueprint. To open, I will just select the hoverboard in the map like this, and I will press Ctrl E to open the blueprint, as you can see. So first, we need to add 4 points to this hoverboard to use as a location reference to apply the forces, right? So I will use an arrow component as the location reference. So here in components, let's just add an arrow. Let's add an arrow here. I will name this hover point 1. As I said before, we need 4 points. So now I will put this where I want to apply the force in the hover. So in my case here, I will put in the X 67 minus 67 like this. In the Y, I will put 17 and 10 on the Z axis like this. So now I will just rotate this to point down like this. And this will be the location where I will apply the first force. So let's add more of these points. So let me just add this. Okay, so I added the other points, and as you can see, this is symmetrical. So the first point is in minus 67, then 17. Then the second one is in 67, 17. The third one is in 67 minus 17. Then the fourth one is in minus 67, then minus 17. So this is symmetrical, and I recommend that you do it like this, so in a symmetrical way, because this will make your hover more stable, right? So now that we have the points, let's start calculating the forces. Another thing to consider is that I placed the points inside the hoverboard, as you can see. So this will basically protect these points from going into a wall, from going inside a wall. Because if we are close to a wall and we hit the wall with the hoverboard and the points are like on the outside part here, this point will go into the wall and this will cause some problems. So that's why I put the points inside the hover like this. Now that we have all the points, we need to create an array so we can loop through all these points and apply the forces, right? So here in the variables, let's create a new one. I will name this hover points like this, and let's change the type of this to scene component. So just search for scene component here and select object reference. Okay, so now we need to change this to an array. So to do this, just right click on the type of the variable and you will change from single to array, as you can see. So there we go. Now we need to put all these points here inside this array, and we will do this in the event graph. So let's start. Let's create a function for that. So here in functions, let's create a new one. I will name this initialize hover like this. So now we need to add those points in this array. To do this, right click and type make array. So we have this node here, make array in the array category. Let's click on this. Now let's drag all these points to the graph. Just select them all and drag to the graph like this. Now we can add these points in this make array node. We just need to add new pins. So let's click here. I will add 3 more, as you can see. So we have 4. Now we just need to connect the pins like this. I don't need this to be in a particular order, so I will just add like this. So now we have an array that we can set as a value for this variable here. So just hold Alt on the keyboard and drag the variable to create a set node. Let's connect the execution pin and just connect this array here in the value of this variable. And there we go. Now we have this function that will put all these points here inside the hover points array. Let's compile and save, and let's go back to the event graph. We need to call this function in the begin play. Let me just delete these other events here. So in the begin play, we will call the initialize hover function. Let's just connect the execution pin And there we go. Basically, in the begin play of this hoverboard blueprint, we will add those points inside this hoverboard, this hover points variable, so we can use later to apply the forces. Okay, so let's start calculating the hover force. So for that we need 3 more variables. So here in variables, let's add a new one. I will name this hover force, like this. Let's change this to float, the type of this to float, and right click to change back to single float, like this. Let's add another one. This will be the hover acceleration. And of course, this needs to be a float as well. Let's compile and save, and now let's use those variables to calculate the force. Let's create a function for that. So here in the functions, let's add a new one. I will name this calculate hover force. So to calculate the hover force, I will use Newton's second law of motion that says that the force is equal to the mass times the acceleration. So first we need to get the mass of the hoverboard. So if we select the hoverboard here, and if we scroll down, as you can see, we have the physics tab here, and we have the mass. So in my case, I will uncheck this, so I will leave this as false. So Unreal will automatically calculate the mass for this object, right? But if you want, you can check this and put your mass that you want in kilograms, right? So I will uncheck this and leave as it is. So now we need to get the mass. But to get the mass, first we need to enable simulate physics. So just check this here, simulate physics, so we can get the mass. So to get this mass, just drag the static mesh to the graph like this. So let's drag the SM hoverboard here. We just need to type get mass from the object like this. So now we have the mass of the hoverboard, but we need the mass of the current driver as well. We need to take the mass of the character into consideration to calculate the force. So to get the mass of the current driver, let's get the current driver like this. And I will get the mass of the character movement component. So just drag here and type get character movement, and if we scroll down, we have the value get character movement. Let's click on this, and from the character movement we can get the mass. Again, just drag and type get mass, and here we have the mass. There we go. So basically I will add this mass together. So from the first one here, let's just drag and type plus. So we have the add operator like this. Let's put the mass of the character in the second pin. And now we need to multiply this by the acceleration, right? So let's drag from these results here and type multiply. So we have the multiply operator. Let's click on this, and in the second pin we will put the hover acceleration, right? So let's just drag this to the graph and connect in the second pin, and there we go. So basically now we have the force that we need to apply in the hover points, but this force here is in newtons, but for Unreal we need this to be in centinewtons. So we need to convert this from Newton to centinewton. We need to change the unit of the force. And to do this is really simple. We just need to multiply this by 100. So just drag from this, from the result here, and type multiply again to get the operator. And in the second pin, I will just put 100 here. And there we go. Now we have a force in centinewtons that we can use to apply the forces in the hover points, right? So now we just need to set this in the hover force variable. Just hold Alt on the keyboard and drag the variable to create a set node, connect the execution pin, and the new value is this result here. Just connect like this, and there we go. Okay, so now in the hover force variable, we will have the force calculated by this function here to apply on each point. So of course, for now, we need to leave this as 0 because this function will calculate this. And in the hover acceleration, in this variable is where we're gonna put the acceleration that we want. So for me, I will put here 200. So just remember to take into consideration the mass of the hoverboard and the mass of the character. So if you have a hoverboard or a character with more mass than I do here, of course, it will need to increase this hover acceleration value. But of course, you can tweak those values to make the gameplay feel like you want, right? But basically now we have a hover force to apply on these points. So let's do this. But first, of course, we need to call this function. So let's go back to the event graph, and because later I will calculate the movement force as well, let's create a custom event so we can call those functions. So here in the event graph, just right click and type custom event to add one. I will name this initialize forces like this, and for now let's just call the calculate hover force. Let's drag to the graph and connect the execution pin. And there we go. So basically now we need to call these initialize forces here, and we will call this when we enter the vehicle. So we need to call this event after setting the current driver. So let me just select these nodes here and put to the side so we have more room. Let me increase the comment here. And after setting the current driver, we need to call the initialize forces. So here, just right click and type the name of the event. For me, it is initialize forces. Let's connect the execution pin. And there we go. So basically, when we enter the vehicle and after setting the current driver, we will calculate the forces, right? So for now, we are only calculating the hover force. And we need to do this after setting the current driver because, as you may remember, the calculate hover force function needs the mass of the current driver, right? So we need to have a current driver. That's why I'm calling this after setting the current driver. And there we go. So basically now when we enter the vehicle, we will have the force to use in the hover points. So let's do this. Okay, so to create the function that will actually apply the hover force, we need to create two more variables. So here in variables, let's add one more, and I will name this hover distance, because of course we only need to apply the forces if we are close enough to the ground. So just change the type of this hover force variable to float, and let's add one more. I will name this turn on, because of course we only need to apply the forces if the hoverboard is turned on, right? So let's change the type of this to Boolean. Let's compile and save, and now let's create the function to apply the hover force. So let's go to functions here and let's create one more, and I will name this apply hover force like this. Okay, so the first thing that we need to see here is if the hoverboard is turned on or not. So let's drag the turn on variable to the graph like this, and let's connect in a branch. So just search for branch here and connect the execution pin. And of course, we only need to apply the forces if this is true. So if the hoverboard is turned on, right? So if this is turned on, we need to loop through all the hover points. So let's drag the hover points variable to the graph like this, and let's connect this in a for each loop. So just type for each loop here, and let's get this one. Let's connect the execution pin from the true. And now we have this loop that will go through every point that we have in the hoverboard. Now for each hover point, we need to do a line trace to see if we are close to the ground. So to do this, just right click and type line trace by channel. Let's get this one here, line trace by channel. Let's connect from the loop body. And now we need to pass a start location and an end location. So the start location is the location of the hover point, so the array element. So just drag from this and type get world location to get the vector here, and just connect on the start like this. So now we need an end location. So as I mentioned before, we need to do this line downwards to see if we have ground, right? If we are close to the ground, so we need a downwards vector. To do this, right click and type make vector. Let's get this one, and let's put -1 on the z-axis, because the z-axis represents the up and down direction in a reel, right? So we have the downwards direction here. Now we just need to multiply this with the hover distance. So just drag this and type multiply, so we have the operator here. And in the second pin, let's connect the hover distance like this. Okay, so now we have the downward vector. We just need to add this on the start location, right? So just drag from the get board location here and type plus to get an add operator. Connect this vector here in the second pin, And now we have the end location. Just connect this on the end location like this. So to see if this is working, let's enable the debug mode here. So here just select for duration, and because we will call this in the tick, let's expand this and put 0 on the draw time like this. And there we go. So basically we will see the line trace in the game, right? Okay, so now we have the line trace results here. So we have the return value and the out hit. So basically the return value is a boolean that tells us if we are hitting something or not. So let's connect this in a branch, because of course we only need to apply the forces if we are hitting something, right? So if we are hitting something, we need to apply the force, but I want to apply more force as we get close to the ground. So we need to make a division here. So let's break this out hit. So let's just drag and type break hit results. Let's expand this. And as you can see here, we have a distance. So this is basically the distance from the ground. So I need to divide the hover force by this distance. So let's get the hover force variable here. Let's get this and let's drag and type divide. So we have the divide operator like this. And in the second pin, let's connect the distance like this. So now we have the final force that we need to apply. So I want to apply this in the local up vector of the hoverboard. So let's get this direction. To get this, just drag the hoverboard to the graph like this and type get up vector. So this is basically the local up vector of this hoverboard, and this is the direction that we want to apply the force. So let's drag from this and type multiply, so we can multiply this by this final force here. Let's just connect this on the second pin. And there we go. Now we have the force. We just need to apply this in the hoverboard. To apply, I will get another reference to this hoverboard here, like this. And from this, let's just drag and type add force at location. So this node here, add force at location, because of course we need to add the force at the specific location of the hover point, right? Just connect the execution pin from the true here, like this. The force is this one here that we calculated here. Let's just connect the force, and now we need to get the location, and the location is the location of the array element, so the location of each point here. Let's just drag from this array element all the way to the end here, up here, and I will type here get world location. And we have again the location of the hover point. So let's just connect this in this location input here. Let me just add a reroute so we organize this a little bit better, like this. And there we go. This is basically the function. So again, if we are hitting something, we are getting the distance from the ground here, and we are dividing the hover force by this distance and applying this force in the up vector of the hoverboard at the specific location of the hover point. So I hope you can understand this. If not, feel free to ask in the comments and I'll try to help you out. But this is basically the function. Okay, so now we just need to call this function and set this turn on variable, right? So let's go back to the event graph, and as I mentioned before, we will call this apply hover force here in the tick event. So here just right click and type tick to add an event tick like this, and let's connect the apply hover force function in this tick like this. Okay, so now we just need to set this turn on variable. So when we enter the vehicle, we need to set this to true. So at the end here of this enter vehicle event, let's set this to true like this. And of course, when we exit, we need to set this to false again. So just expand the comment here, and at the end here, just set the turn on variable to off. And there we go. Let's compile and save, and now we can test to see if this is working. And I forgot, but of course we need to set the hover distance as well. So I will set here 150 for me. Of course, you can tweak these values to make the gameplay feel like you want. But for me, I will put 150. And let's organize these variables a little bit. So the hover distance I will put in the hover category. So here in the category, just type hover. And now let's put the hover force in the same category. So just select hover here, and the hover acceleration I will put in the hover category as well. And the hover points I will put in the hoverboard category. So here just type hoverboard, and let's put the turn on variable in the hoverboard category as well. And there you go. Let's compile and save, and now let's test to see if this is working. Okay, so let's go back to the map here so we can test. So let me just hit play here. And as you can see, the hoverboard is turned off, so the hover force is not being applied. But if I enter this, there you go, now we are floating. But as you can see, this is pretty unstable. So basically this will go crazy, as you can see. So in the next video, we will start working to make the hoverboard more stable. And this is basically it for this video. Now the hoverboard is floating in the air. It's pretty unstable at the moment, but in the next video we will stabilize the hover. So if you do like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe so you don't lose any new content. And now we have members on the channel. So if you want early access to new videos, feel free to join, and I appreciate your support. So as always, thank you for watching, keep learning, and I'll see you in the next video.